The reasons for moving to the single ILR are driven out of the three things that are changing. The single ILR is a move away from four different ways of collecting the data. It's also a restructuring of the data and the move to XML. And the primary driver behind the move to the singleness is that providers themselves were saying that they wanted to have the data, to be able to send the data in one way at one time. But when we started out, there weren't that many providers that had benefited from multiple funding streams, and that meant that most providers were sending data in one, at the most two different ways to two different timetables. That didn't seem too bad, but there's lots and lots of providers now that have benefit from 3 or 4 funding streams, and each one of them they need to send in data at different times in different ways. Sort of allied to that is that where a learner benefited from more than one funding stream, then that did create all sorts of difficulties getting keeping the data in an MIS system so that you could send it to in the different timetables with slightly different formats. And really it also puts us in a good position for the skills funding agencies move to the single purse. And then even in 12-13, further rationalisations that they're promising. The benefits of the new system, it's a simplified, more coherent approach to the collection of the data, not having it split up into these different chunks and looking at it in different ways and different times. The XML will give more flexibility certainly to us, and our understanding is that with time it will do to suppliers depending on how much they've implemented it, so that we'll be able to make the annual changes in a more timely and less expensive way. The hurdles in the handling the transition year 2011-12, whenever you make changes, changes always cost. There's always some extra work to do, and the transition with a year with flat files and the new single ILR in the same year is more work, more expensive for that year, but after that year it'll be better. It does introduce a completely new way of thinking, and myself and I noticed particularly colleagues, because I've been working on it for a while, that at first people simply can't talk without talking about things in the old terms, and it is a whole new way of thinking. There's no longer a learner responsive return, an employer responsive return, but people still sort of fall back into talking in that way, and it just doesn't make any sense anymore. And the other, well, I don't know, hurdle, but things that people need to think carefully about, where a provider's had more than one group of people responsible for making the different sorts of return, they do need to have a single person or group that's in charge of making the transmissions of data to the data service. Otherwise they'll get in a mix-up. The single ILR is going to be, the introduction of single ILR is going to be in 2011-12, which is a transition year where from a provider point of view they'll still be able to use a flat file, at least produce a flat file, and stuff that the data service has produced will handle that and turn it into a single ILR format. So it's 11-12, but with a bit of mitigation. In 12-13 it is fully implemented.